Feels like it takes forever to get here, but it starts flying through. We are already up to the fourth week of the NFL season. NFL Week 4 coming up, Thursday night game with the Lions and the Packers. I am Gino Bucola. I have my good friend Erik from ETOF21 Sports here. We've been here with you each and every game for the last 3-4 years. The last 3 for sure. We've previewed every game together on this show. Regular season, playoff games. We're wagering on these games ourselves. We have been for a long time. We're playing fantasy, and we're also fans, which sometimes can get a little bit cloudy, but always comes the money, always comes the winning, then comes the fandom. But in game 1 this week, Erik's fandom is here with the Detroit Lions. So Erik, buddy, I guess before we get into this week, you and I were 2-3 in our 5 games that we put together last week. We've been 2-3, 3-2, 2-3. So just one under 500 at the moment heading into week 4. You had a couple really good calls, though, from last week I wanted to give you credit on before we move on and just completely forget about them. You called the Colts playing well against the Ravens. They won that game straight up. You called the Texans playing well against the Jags. They won that game straight up. 7.5-point dog, straight up win. 9.5-point dog, straight up win. And the Cowboy, we also saw another one. A lot of survivor pools were hit hard between those 3 teams last week, and you were on 2 of them on the opposite side. So nice call there, buddy.
Thanks. Hopefully we can continue. I did pissed I didn't sprinkle on the Colts money line. I had the Texas money line too. So good week overall. Hopefully, we can keep it going into this week.
And I got a question. I'm not sure if you heard Taylor Swift was around last week. I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear that? Did you? You may not have heard. If anybody out there has not heard, Taylor Swift was around. Funny stuff. But Taylor Swift and Kelsey are dating, and now we're going to see Sunday Night Football in New York in a game that possibly could be a blowout because they're playing the Jets. There could be a lot of Taylor Swift there. Could be a lot of Taylor Swift on that broadcast.
That's all Collinsworth is going to be talking about.
Oh, I know.
It's going to be
the song puns and you know how impressive those concerts that she puts on, Al. I'm telling you, Mike. That's not Al. It used to be Al. Now it's Mike. I'm telling you, she goes out there for 3-4 hours and she's like an athlete. That's what we're going to be hearing about on Sunday. Things that stood out in week 4, obviously the Dolphins putting up 70 points, 3 big upsets that I had just mentioned, all over a touchdown. Just 3 teams left that are 3-0. Now, 3 undefeated teams only through 3 weeks. There are 4 teams that have not won, and they play each other this week in the 2 games. So in a couple of games, something's got to give unless we get some ties. Wasn't a great week for the NFC East. Giants got crushed by the 49ers to kick off the week on Thursday night. Then the Commanders got crushed by the Bills. The Cowboys got beat up by the Cardinals. Eagles salvaged the week with a win on Monday Night Football. And the NFC South, not a great week for them either. 0-4, including a loss by the Falcons to the Detroit Lions. Erik's Detroit Lions, as we head over and start talking about week 4, Lions at the Packers. So how about this one, Erik? The Lions are a 1.5-point favorite on the road at Green Bay. So not something you necessarily see all too often here. Green Bay's had sort of a weird start to the season. They've had some injuries early on, and their metrics are kind of fascinating to dive into because they're like offensively, they've hit some big plays. They're like a real boom or bust type offense. Their success rate down to down, not very good. 17 on offense on success rate per play, but their offensive EPA per dropback is 3rd. Carried by explosive plays, some penalty yardage, but Love is 32nd in completion percentage. He only has a 53% completion percentage, and he leads the league in air yards per attempt. So it's sort of like opposite. It makes a little bit of sense, though. You're not completing as much because you have the bigger arm. He's off target a little bit, but they've been making do. They come back from 17-0. They did not score on their first 7 drives last week when they were playing the Saints. Then they score on 3 consecutive drives. They're down by 14. They score a touchdown to go down 8. And then they go for 2. They do the analytic move. LaFleur did it. When you're down 14, you go for 2 because you have 2 opportunities to get that 2-point conversion.
Well, he did have the ball at the 10 on a 4th and 2 and elected to go for it when he was down 17-0.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense at all because you need the 3
right there in that situation with how much your team has been struggling. I think you needed to kick it.
Completely agree. I didn't like that at all.
The analytics stuff going for 2 in that situation, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I had the -1.5. I was bitter about it, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna, he did the right play. I was more upset about him.
The field goal earlier. You got when you're down 3 scores that you have to make that. You have to kick it. There makes no sense not to kick it.
Yeah, that was a little bit.
You're gonna need a kick at one point. Take the easy one right there, and then just know you need 2 scores.
Yeah. And I mean, the big thing here, the tough thing for this, Jameer Alexander, Zany Aronson, David Bakhtiari, Devon Campbell, Rashad Gray, Jenkins, Jones, Tom, Valentine, Watson, Decker, Jackson, Joseph, Montgomery, Mosley, Nelson,
all banged up.
Renew, Vaitai. That's the injury report for this team.
This game.
You have no idea who's going to be running out.
And the bulk of those are on the offensive lines for both teams.
But the fact that Aaron Jones sat out and Watson sat out, I really think that's because they had a Thursday game.
Probably Montgomery too.
Yeah. I think if they would have, if they didn't have the quick turnaround, I think those guys would have went. In terms of side, I mean, look, I have to take the Packers here. I'm going to wait. I think we'll see more Detroit money come in. The one prop bet that I did lock in, and this is like in the system for tomorrow, Luke Musgrave over 36.5 yards receiving. Lions have given up the most yards per game to opposing tight ends. Every single tight end has gone over their prop. So I think this has already moved up to 38. I would lock it in. Anything under 40. I would take, even if Watson does play, we have to remember he's coming back from a soft tissue injury. Those take a little while to get going.
The Lions have not been favored at Green Bay when the Packers started their starting quarterback since 1986. There were 4 other times versus Packers backup quarterbacks. So 1990, 91, 2011, 2017. Pretty crazy there. It's just funny to see this number with the Lions favored on the road at Green Bay.
Right. Detroit's just kind of like I got a t-shirt. I'll be rocking it soon that says I was a Detroit fan before it was cool.
Right.
It kind of feels like they're kind of the team that them and the Dolphins, that everyone's kind of liking. I don't know. For them to go on, Goff historically has struggled. Goff as a favorite outdoors is 35.7% against the run. The really things that stood out to me is when you kind of look at the yards per game. Lions are actually really good this year against the run. If Jones doesn't go and they're leaning on Taylor and AJ Dillon, that's going to be really hard to run. I really think
Dillon's been terrible.
Yeah.
Dillon's been terrible.
I really think that the Lions are going to be able to shut him down. I am worried, though, if Jones goes. I'm a little bit concerned because he's just such a dynamic guy, especially in the receiving game. Flip side of that, Packers struggle against the run. Packers resting as many people as they did. I know a couple people. I know the tackle. Oh my God, I'm spacing on the tackle's name. Bacaneri, he's been ruled out already for the game.
Yeah. Then both of these sides, I agree with you. It's tough for me to trust either one of these sides, just not knowing what their injury report is going to look like. And even what the report's going to look like, all these guys are banged up. They can be on the field and then out in a play or two. Yeah. That's the problem. There's a lot of guys that are injured, but just a couple points on each side before we move along. Packers down by 17 through 3 quarters last week without a lot of key pieces. It was the largest comeback win for them since week 1 of 2018 when they were down by 20. They did have 7 offensive penalties, though, in the first 3 quarters. 3 false starts, 2 holds, an illegal formation, and OPI. They were like checking off the boxes of all the different penalties you could have. But they did take advantage of penalties. This is the second straight week when they've had some massive pass interference penalties go their way. Twice against Atlanta last week, and then twice this week. They had a 45 and then a 22-yard pass interference penalties on back-to-back plays. Good to see Dobbs get more involved in Musgrave. Eric, I think a play for me this week might be Dobbs, because of Watson's coming back, and even if Jones is back around, I feel like Dobbs is someone who will be forgotten about. He played much better last week. He just feels healthier now, and so he may be a step ahead of Watson, have a little bit more familiarity, a little more chemistry right now with the quarterback, and he would be someone I might look to target in this game. Dobbs is someone I've been high on.
Dobbs is the number 1 here. Watson's just the field stretcher. For whatever reason, everyone thinks Watson's going to be the number 1 come the end of the year. We talked about it when we did the NFC North preview. With the offense they run, it's more short, more elaborate. You need to be a sound route runner. Dobbs is a way better route runner than Watson is. So I could see Dobbs having a good game here too.
In your Lions defense, 9th in EPA per rush, 3rd in rushing success rate allowed. They just shut down a really solid Atlanta offensive line in a really solid run game. 7 sacks, 2 of them by Hutchinson. He's been awesome. Laporta, the first tight end to catch 5 or more passes in each of his first 3 games since the NFL-AFL merger. But those injuries on the offensive line that's hurt them. And there's one particular drive that stood out where they had a goal-to-go situation and 5 chances to score. Had to settle for a field goal.
Yep.
Can't do that against good teams or in games that might be close. But Goff, man, the offense is the coordinators and the coaching staff, they've done a fantastic job with him. 5th in the league in passing yards, 6th in passer rating so far this year. That's game 1 this week. That's Thursday night football. Lions at the Packers there. Lions as a short favorite for the first time against like full roster teams since 1986. So, yeah, it was a year before, a couple months before I was born last time that happened. The Jags and the Falcons, they're playing in London. And you know what? This might be a game that Milo is watching, Eric, because they're also going to have a Toy Story broadcast of this game on ESPN and on Disney, on ESPN Plus and on Disney Plus, where they have some of the players are going to be animated. There's going to be stuff like they're going to be transformed into cartoons and stuff to for the kids. Trevor Lawrence reportedly wants to be Slinky Dog. So Toy Story fans will be enjoying the Jags and Falcons London game.
I mean, that's cute.
That's cool. Cool for the kids, man. And it's cool because you do it on a separate channel, on a separate network, right? And it's not something that's instead of the broadcast. It's not going to be taking the place of that. So if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. But I'll wake up Milo a little early because for me, this game starts at 6:30. I'll put him in his chair and have a little breakfast for him, and he loves Toy Story, so I think he'll probably get a kick out of watching that, and maybe he can spend a few minutes watching some football with Dad. But we have 2 teams coming off of a real disappointing week 3, the Falcons and the Jags. So remember, this game starts early, and this game is in London, so Jacksonville doesn't have a home field advantage other than the fact that they've been to London more often than anyone. Man, they've been disappointing, and I got to give you a ton of credit. You sniffed this out. We were both not that high on Jacksonville overall this year. You really felt like they were going to kind of come back to life. Their special teams last week were awful. They allowed a kick return touchdown to a fullback. They had a blocked field goal that became a touchdown a few plays later, and they missed a field goal. And now Lawrence is 1-4 against the Texans. They were favored in all 4 losses. The only quarterback since 1970 to lose 4 games to a team they were favored over. Now, I will say, he has actually been playing pretty well. It's not really his fault. He leads the league in drops by wide receivers when they are open. They were without 4. They lost to the Texans, who were without 4 offensive linemen and 8 starters, with a rookie quarterback making his 3rd career start. Their first 5 drives of the game: missed field goal, punt, block field goal, punt, fumble. Ridley has really struggled. He had that great first half of game 1. Since then, he's not been good. Last week, he had 2 drops in the end zone and 2 false start penalties. Just way off. They were 5 of 13 on third down, 0 of 1 on fourth down. Only the Jets are worse on third down than them. And it looks like Peterson now took over play calling. I just haven't been impressed, or I haven't been pleased with much of what I've seen from Jacksonville so far, Eric. And for Atlanta, it was a bad game for them last week. Detroit's defense shut them down. I need to see a little more creativity from Arthur Smith. He's really not letting Ritter do too much in a lot of these games, and Ritter didn't look good. He took a lot of those 7 sacks. It was a bad game for Ritter. I felt like he took a step forward in the win in the second half of the Packers game. Wasn't a good one for him last week. And the Falcons' offensive line wasn't really good either. They only averaged 2.2 yards per carry. If they can't take any shots down the field, it makes it really easy for other teams to stack the box and defend them. Falcons also missed a field goal. I would still lean Atlanta in this game slightly. I would not lay the points with Jacksonville. I just still think Jacksonville may be a little bit over valued in the market right now. And I think it's probably the opposite for Atlanta. I feel like a lot of people probably think, oh, okay, Atlanta lost last week, so their first 2 games, they weren't, they're not really anything. I'm higher on Atlanta than Jacksonville. I feel like at a field goal or over, I'm on the Atlanta side here.
I mean, the interesting trend for me that really stood out is teams that are playing these, what are they called, international series games, are 60% against the number as the favorite. That's what kind of stood out to me. Favorites tend to cover here. I really don't like betting these London games unless I have a real strong feeling. Both these teams,
they're just weird. They're weird games. Routines are different. Everything's different. There's no real home.
They're coming off a pretty poor performance. So there's no real opportunity to get team in a down. They're both kind of in a down right now.
And I don't think there's the number. I would lean Atlanta just because I like Atlanta more, but it's not. If this was 3.5, I'd be all in on Atlanta. I just don't think there's a lot of value on the number either.
I think Atlanta has the advantage in the trenches. Ridley dropped 2 TD passes last game. Obviously, a revenge game for him. Looked at firing him up in your DFS stuff. He's due for a bounce back. Can the Jags stop the run? How's the Jags defense going to look? Are they going to be able to stop the pass? I mean, if Ritter does pass, I don't know. This game for me is nothing. I don't want anything to do with this game. I'll eat my Sunday morning pancakes and watch.
And keep in mind, folks, we are looking at the lines on DRF Sportsbook. If you're in the state of Iowa, sign up for a DRF Sportsbook account. Use the promo code FAST350. It'll get you all the way up to a $350 deposit match bonus. You can be playing along soon. We got a divisional game in the AFC North. The Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. This one has dipped now down to Cleveland -2.5. Browns, their defense has been incredible. They last week against the Titans allowed 94 total yards and 6 first downs. In week 2, Pittsburgh got 9 first downs and scored 12 total points. In week 1, Cleveland had 6 first downs and scored 3 total points. The defense has given up 18 points. The offense has given up 14 because they had a couple pick sixes in there. In the red zone, they've only allowed 1 field goal. They're allowing a league low 3.2 yards per play, which is the best in almost 100 years. They have a 60% 3-and-out rate. Incredible job by Jim Schwartz. You called this during the offseason. You really like this move for their defense. They're first in EPA per dropback allowed and second in EPA per rush allowed. The problem is, and it hasn't been a problem really yet for them because the defense is so dominant, and when you have a defense that is that dominant, it may not matter all the time, but the offense is just 22nd in EPA per play. So the offense isn't anything fantastic. And while Watson looked better last week, it was the best game we've seen from him in a Browns uniform since everything went down and since he came over from the Texans. But he was playing against a really bad Titans secondary who has let everybody look good against them. And he was graded quarterback number 11 on the week. So even in a great week for him, he was still like a top 3rd quarterback. He's number 18 on the year so far. It was his best passer rating since 2020. I mean, the thing that sticks out when you're watching the film is just Garrett. Again, I'll give you credit. You pointed this out, how unstoppable he is on defense when you have other guys around that can also make plays. Because if you pay attention to Garrett, all these other guys are going to hurt you. They had 2 tight ends spying him.
Yeah. I talked about this on my stream last night. Schwartz is doing stuff we haven't seen before. He's having the interiors down in the stance, Garrett and Smith standing up. He's putting Garrett in motion. He'll have him line up on one side, go to the right side, then go back to the left side. What we're seeing from Schwartz is just kind of a masterclass. And when you kind of look back at what he's done, now granted, his tenure with the Lions wasn't the best, but from where they were to where they were when they left, they got better. Went to the Bills after he was fired, immediately took that defense, which was bottom tier, to one of the better ones in the league. Was off a year, worked for the league, and then he was 4 years in Philly, transformed that defense to one of the better defenses, led him to a Super Bowl, and then had some health issues. And now this is his first year back, and we kind of all forgot. This is way better than I thought it was going to be. We all kind of forgot how smart this guy is.
Yep.
Defensively.
Because he has the scheme and the personnel, right? You have the personnel that you can play
and the
around.
Secondary is playing a lot better than I thought they were.
They are.
The secondary is playing a lot better. In terms of this game, on a different sports book, a 3 popped, and I was able to get a 3 here. Lamar Jackson as a dog in his career 12 times, an insane 11-1. He's 8-1 as a road dog in his career. So this is a spot he covers. And we've talked about this with Stefanski before. Against the AFC North, he is 6-14.
And all of those wins come against the Bengals.
Pretty much, yeah.
He doesn't beat the other teams.
Yep. As a favorite, 2-8. Favorite in general, 11-19, 37.6. Browns, it looks like all these guys that were hurt, for the Ravens, are starting to come back to practice. So they're going to be a little bit more healthier going.
And that was last year. They had 8 guys out at one point.
It was last week. They were depleted as hell, and it really showed up against that Colts team.
Especially because they went into overtime, right? So you're later in the game. You got less bodies out there. People are hurt. People are banged up. They were sloppy. I mean, they started really good. It sort of felt like a trappy kind of game that they just thought they were going to win. They complete their first 10 passes of the game. And then there was this stretch where they fumbled on 4 out of 9 plays right before halftime. It was bizarre. And then Tucker has a 61-yard attempt at the end of regulation to win it. It falls a couple yards short. It's not often when he's not the best kicker in a game, but he ended up losing out in a game where Matt Gay was awesome. I think he had 4+ 50-yard field goals, 50+ yard field goals.
My buddy, he's a huge Ravens fan, and every time before he kicks, he always just texts me good.
Oh no! Did he do it? He mushed them.
He did. It was kind of funny. It was legitimately kind of funny. He texted me good.
Because that thing was dead center too, right? It looked good, and then it just, you see it getting shorter. Yeah. It's like, oh no way.
In terms of this game, just kind of looking at
and then not to interrupt real quick. Yeah. Then there was that face mask penalty, which I know a lot of penalties and a lot of stuff gets called throughout the game that gets missed here and there, but it was a bad face mask penalty in overtime that would have kept the drive going and put the Ravens in way closer field goal range, and they probably win the game, and they just missed that on Zay Flowers for sure. So, I like the Ravens side in this too, but I think I'm with you. I would, if he didn't get 3, I would wait for it to possibly go back to 3 if possible.
Yeah. The Ravens are only giving up 200 yards passing per game. Per DVOA, their pass defense is 6th. And then the rushing defense, they've given up, they're the 8th. They've given up the 8th least yards in rushing yards per game. DVOA has them as the 9th best rush defense, 5th best defense overall. I think this Ravens team is going to be able to limit Watson. Browns still have some injuries in the front. I'm going to just bet the bounce back spot here. And we need to remember that this is the best quarterback that this Browns defense has played. Has it looked great? Yes. Week 1, Burrow was hurt. Played Tannehill, who,
has been terrible in 2 of the 3 weeks. He's had
awful,
one okay week.
And then played Small Hands Pickett, who I'm not a huge fan of. So
no, Pickett's been terrible too. Pickett's been awful too. You're absolutely right. This is better by far, a team that's familiar overall with some of the personnel.
So
to me, the number's the key here is if you can get it over at 3. Where do we head next, Eric? The Bengals at the Titans. This one has been a playoff game that we've seen, and these two teams have played each other a couple times over the last few years. Titans are a 2.5-point dog at home. So the Bengals are 2.5-point favorite on the road. They got their first win of the year on Monday Night Football. I mean, they didn't look good, though, especially on offense. They were 1 of 7 on third down in the first half. They only scored 6 points. They end the night 5 of 17 on third down and 1 of 1 on fourth down. Give you an example, just anyone that may not have seen the game. They got an interception on the 41-yard line, and they went backwards 8 yards and had to punt. Couldn't get anything out of it. And they can't go deep down the field right now because of the Burrow injury. He just can't plant. It was the first time in his career that he has won a game with a less than 80 passer rating. It's the second time this year he's had a passer rating under 60. He never had one passer rating under 60 in his career before this year. And it's already happened in 2 of the 3 games so far. Right now, I like Burrow. I'm not saying he's obviously hurt. So I'm not saying he's bad and he's going to be bad forever. But if this is the version we're getting right now, this version is 32nd in the league in yards per attempt and 31st in completion percentage. So what does that tell me? That's the opposite of what I was just saying about Jordan Love, right? Jordan Love has a bad completion percentage, but it's because he takes big shots. This is a bad completion percentage and bad yards per attempt. So nothing's really making sense here. The defense played well, though. They were all over Stafford on passing downs, 6 sacks. Only one player had more than one, so they spread it all around. Great game for Chase. He got back involved. Just 4.2 yards per play. They only had 2.9 yards per rush. That wasn't great. So another instance where you have 2 teams that, while the Bengals won, I don't think I was really impressed with them, especially on the offensive side in the health of Burrow. Higgins had another awful game where he just couldn't connect at all with Burrow. Then on the Titans side, that was probably one of the most disappointing games I had in Vrabel in a while. Right before the end of the half, they're down 13-3, and you kick a field goal, and it's 13-6, and you're down by 7. And it was a bad play call. He called a pass play, and it was stupid for Tannehill. He took a sack, and then all of a sudden you just can't kick a field goal. So you eat those 3 points, and you just felt bad momentum if you were someone on the Titans side there. And their secondary struggled. They had 94 total yards. Eric, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're not winning any games with 94 total yards. 6 first downs in the game. Spears actually has outsnapped Henry in 2 of 3 games. And Tannehill is graded number 31 in the league in offensive EPA per dropback, 28th in completion percentage. He's been sacked 13 times. They got a turnover on a fumble recovery on the 17-yard line. They go backwards 9 yards in 3 plays and end up having to kick a 44-yard field goal. They had 8 penalties, 4 that were automatic first downs. I'm leaning Tennessee as this play in here, Eric, but I would want 3 probably. I'm not sure if I'm going to play either way, and I don't think it's going to get there. Yeah,
it's not going to get to 3. Today this got down to 1.5. There's been a little buyback to 2.5. I don't see it getting to 3. I actually locked it in at 2.5. Vrabel as a dog, 25, 16 and 1, 61%. Home dog, 62.5%. But we talk about buying low, selling high all the time on here. Teams that scored 3 points or less that are a home dog are 62% against the number. So it kind of means there's a little bit inflation here. Burrow, and the thing we need to remember here is Burrow's not 100%. From what I've been told, and I know someone who knows what he's talking about because he's there. this calf injury is a lot serious than people realize. He's having a hard
he
time.
didn't look good. And it's a short week.
The guy I talked to is actually shocked he even played. Now you're playing against the Titans, who have a phenomenal defensive line. Titans are going to be able to get to him. And already Burrow is somebody that holds on to the ball a little longer than he should because he likes to throw it up. He likes to go deep. His average depth of target tends to be toward the top of the NFL when the season ends. I think this defensive line is going to be able to get to Burrow. And then another thing, everyone's talking about Burrow. This defense for the Bengals hasn't been that good this year, especially against the run. Last year, they gave up, what was it, the 5th least rushing yards per game. This year, they are giving up 151 yards rushing per game, which isn't that good. It is, what is it? The 3rd worst. I think that the Titans, they're going to be able to run on him. Thus they're going to shorten the game. DVOA has them as the 28th, the Bengals, the 28th best rushing defense, 22nd defense overall. This Bengals defense is down. Titans defense is actually playing pretty good overall.
And even EPA has just like you said on those rushing metrics also. EPA rushing success rate, Cincinnati is giving up a 44% success rate on rushes. Think about that. Almost 1 out of every 2 rushes for another team is being graded successfully. So that means if it's 1st and 10, they're getting like 5 yards on that to make it a positive down. So then it'll be 2nd and 4. If it's 2nd and 4, they're getting 3 yards to make it 3rd and 1. Whatever the down is, they're getting positive almost 45% of the time. That's not good. That's 25th in the league. They're 26th in overall rushing EPA. So again, you're right. Those are places that Tennessee wants to hit. That's the focus on Tennessee, running the ball. I'm not on the Bengals side here. This might be one of our 5 if we can't come together, because I definitely am fine being on Tennessee. I don't think we're going to get the number I want, and I might have a couple other spots, but if me and Eric need to get 5, this could be one of them. But Eric, I'm ready for the Super Bowl next. We got the Broncos at the Bears. So how about this? The Broncos.
So before you go into this, I just need to go through my little stats I have for this.
Give it to us.
Jared Goff has as many rushing touchdowns as
Justin Fields. I had that was one that I had on here. Keep going though. Anything else?
Do you have the Mac Jones one?
No. Okay, go ahead.
Mac Jones has run more RPO plays this year than Justin Fields has.
Unbelievable.
And the thing that just blows my mind is
why
Jim Caldwell came in to Chicago with a multi-year plan.
5-year plan.
What he was going to do to develop Justin Fields from A to B. Now you're in a situation, you hired a coach 20 games into his tenure. Fields has not got any better. And it's to the point now he may need a change of scenery. You may have to trade him. And he's 3-17. 3-17. 3-17.
Unbelievable.
It's just awful. DC's house is getting raided by the FBI. It's just a bad look.
I mean, last week, like you said, they're getting raided. They had equipment stolen.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, this is a crazy thing. If your pace, you have to start thinking right now, okay, we're going to have probably the first and 4th draft pick. We're going to have some high draft picks, at least 2 in the top 10. Fields, you need a quarterback on a rookie contract. You could probably get some draft picks for Fields. You move on from Fields and take May or Williams. That's literally what the Bears season has come from. The team that everyone bet down from 100-1 to win the Super Bowl to less than 50-1 could be moving off of Justin Fields. There's some stuff here, man.
They've lost 13 straight. The Bears, they've been outscored by 190 points during that stretch. 80 points worse than any team during that stretch. Only 8 coaches in NFL history have ever lost 13 straight games. Eberflus, there we go. You were mentioning some of the numbers, 3-17. They've won 3 playoff games over the last 25 years. This one play was just such a play to me that summed up the team this year. So, or this one like series of plays. They take a bad sack, then they have to punt. And their special teams, it looks like the punt is going to be a great punt. It looks like they're going to pin them at the 1. And the special teamer is down there, and the ball bounces right through his hands, and it goes into the end zone. That's a 20-yard swing. That's worse than a pass interference penalty, like a 15-yard penalty that you don't even think about. That's 20 yards of field position just because the guy took his eye off the ball for a second. It bounces through his hands.
They're just not well coached. I mean, you can say what you want. At the end of the day, they're not.
They're not. And what about Denver? Denver just gave up 70 points, and they're a 3.5-point favorite on the road. It's just funny.
The thing I said during the West, I said when we did your AFC West preview, my worrisome was the wide 9 technique that
Joseph, and he's been terrible.
Insists on running, and McDaniel just zone ran that to shit, and that's what you do against it. Literally against the zone rush, it was just boom. It was just they just eat them up.
Denver's offense, if you just isolated their offense and you were only looking at their offensive metrics, everything is like in the middle. 15-ish, 16-ish. They're like right down the middle at most of the offensive metrics, like EPA per play and success rate and those types of things. Their offense hasn't been bad, and people want to pile on Russ because it was fun to do so last year. He has not been the problem with this team. Their defense is historically bad, like horrendously bad.
I think he's better, but I think he's taken a little too long.
Oh yeah, I mean he's not back or anything like that. He's never going to get back to what his peak was, but he's not the whole reason why they're struggling. I think they're 14th in offense. Like I said, all of their metrics, whether you're looking DVOA, EPA, they're all somewhere in the 14 to 20 range.
One of the big things, they're just not including the pass to the running back. He's trying to throw it downhill.
Yeah, all downhill, nothing short. And that's always been one of the real issues with Russ, right?
Yeah.
Not wanting to take the little stuff that's right in front of him. Fields had 11 completions for 99 yards passing. And then again, one time he's injured. He looks woozy. He has to be helped to the sidelines. They're down by 38 points. Why do you put him back in the game? What are you doing at that point for this guy? And you bring him back in, makes no sense. 9 possessions for them to score their first point of the game, which was a 20-yard field goal with 13 minutes left to go in the game. Their defense, they got their first takeaway of the year in the third quarter when they were down by 6 scores against the backup quarterback. That's their first takeaway they've had so far this year. They've allowed 106 points in 33 games, second most allowed in team's history. The big free agent acquisition, Edmonds, targeted 11 times in coverage, allowed 10 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. This will be the first time in history 2 teams meet each other after combining to allow 110 plus points and over 1,100 yards the week before. That's what we're talking about with these 2 teams.
But at the end of the day, look, I have a rule: when 2 shitty teams play, you always take the team getting points.
Absolutely. I'm taking the Bears plus the 3.5, especially once they're at home, they're getting the points, and it's over the field goal.
I need to wait. I want to, but I'm waiting to see if there's any bullshit that comes out in the media. Fields bitching about the.
But coach. If we're talking Sunday morning, and this is that line, you would lock in plus 3.5 Sunday morning.
I would make plus 3 if everything 3.5 if everything's kosher.
Sure.
If shit starts coming out, then there's no way in hell.
Broncos 0-3 with Peyton. But again, Russell Wilson had 193 yards passing at halftime. How about this? They have 3 losses by 50 points or more in their franchise history. Erik, the last team to have 3 losses or more by 50 points in their franchise history was a team that you lost a couple times on. The old Rochester Jeffersons back in 1925. Those Rochester Jeffersons. Let's keep rolling along. Where do we go next? Rammies at the Colts. So the Rams, this one's basically a pick 'em now, right? This one's back to like right around even.
Game. Like some of these games,
we don't know with Richardson.
Well, we don't know with Richardson. Your boys are insanely banged up on
the offensive line now. And the first 2 weeks they were good, but then last week they allow 6 sacks in that game. And if that offensive line is going to look like that, then you can't play them. It's tough because their offensive line did look better.
The Colts is their back 4, but if you don't have anything to block, like DeForest Buckner and the people up front, Stafford can't take advantage of it. Something else to kind of monitor, and this is the thing that kind of stood out to me. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love their center Ryan Kelly. I love that guy, and I can't imagine what he went through, and the fact he's out there playing is great. He used to be one of the better centers in the league, but he's just not what he used to be. No. And they're actually better when he doesn't play. He was banged up last week. If he goes, maybe Donald could take advantage of it. I would kind of lead the Rammies here if I knew that the offensive line is okay. Because the weakness of the Colts is their back 4. But I'm just this is another game. I'm gonna sit out and just kind of lean back.
And Minshew probably gives the Colts a better chance to win most games.
We don't know
we don't know.
He's yet to make it through a full game.
Yeah, and that's the problem too. And ceiling wise, Richardson, his running gives him this incredible ceiling. He can't make throws or even some consistent throws like Minshew can. So totally different sort of offenses with the two of those guys.
I will say this: both these coaches that used to be on the Eagles doing way better than I thought they were. And if I'm the Colt, if this guy Shane Steichen, whatever his name is, if he had Fields, he would be doing some work, but unfortunately he doesn't. We got to monitor the Jonathan Taylor thing. Taylor, I saw on X before we started talking, or Twitter, whatever the hell it's called, that he's very adamant he doesn't want to go play for the Colts. What are they going to do? Are they going to look to move him? It's really going to be interesting to see. In terms of the game, though, tough until we know what's going on with this offensive line for your boys. So this is just a pass for me.
The Colts have to give some love to kicker Matt Gay last week. 4 field goals of 50-plus yards. Only kicker ever to hit 4 50-plus yarders in a single game. He made all 5 field goals that he had. He was responsible for 16 of the 22 points. They gave him a big contract that a lot of people laughed at, and it's still something you don't need to do. But in a game where he was playing against the best kicker of all time, he was the guy that stood out. And that's pretty cool. That's cool when you can go against MJ and you have your night, for whatever it was. And he got to outkick the best kicker, which was pretty cool. And the Colts, how about them? They're 2-1. I like you were talking about their coach. He got a little cute, but I don't know if you saw the play where they lined the kicker up out wide. Did you see that? And so they made Baltimore was like, what the hell are they doing? And so Baltimore calls a timeout. So he made him call a timeout just because he lined the kicker up out wide. And then he put the field goal team on, but he tried to rush the team off. But then, of course, if you do that, the defense can substitute. So then it ended up in a delay of game. So the first thing he did was awesome because he made Baltimore waste a timeout just because he lined the kicker up. But then he tried to get he got his little big for his britches. He was like, okay, cool. That worked. Now I'm going to try to do something. And that backfired. And they ended up getting a delay of game on the next one. But I like this coach. I really do. And the scheme was good. He had a lot of stuff that was well designed for Minshew. We will wait a little more on this one, though, and we'll have more information for you on this one later in the week if you join me and Eric on Friday for the winning ticket or on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Eric, next game is the game of the week. Dolphins at the Bills. Bills are a 3-point favorite. I will say I locked this one in immediately at 2.5 on the Bills side. And because right away when Miami was scoring 70, it just was a situation where I was going to play against them based on that. Like anytime a team has a game where they are that successful and things go that well for them, I'm just always going to fade them, Eric. And that's what's happening right now. Like everything, like every statistic out there that we're hearing about the Dolphins is incredible. It's going to sound like I'm coming off as a hater or something. I'm not. It's only the fourth time in history a team has scored 70 points. They actually scored the most offensive points ever because the only other times when teams scored 70, they had defensive touchdowns or other scores in those, like special team scores. So this was all offense. It was well balanced. Tua was 16 for 16 to start. And you know what I really like as a gambler and as someone that's a coach is that they had a chance to go for the all-time record for 73, and their coach said, nah, we didn't need to do it. Why? You don't need to rub it in. You don't need those extra points. There's going to be a time, maybe this week against the Bills or in the playoffs, when you need a field goal, and you may get it then. It just is like a karma thing with the sports gods. If there was a game where it was close and it was like 70-50 and they were going back and forth and they wanted to keep scoring, I'd get it. But I love, to me, as a coach, I felt great when I heard that McDaniel just said, nah, we don't need it. Why? You know, it's not worth doing. What if somebody goes out there and twists an ankle on the getting set up for the field goal? Something stupid could happen, right? And I love the fact that they didn't. But man, they are way too overvalued and way too overhyped right now. This is a 3-0 team that could be 1-2. Like, their offense is amazing, but as good as their offense is, their defense is not. Their defense right now is still 21 in DVOA metrics. And this Bills team, I think, is a little more well-balanced. I like what I saw from them. They've kind of quietly been good the last 2 weeks after they lost in week 1. Next 2 games, they won by 28 points or more. That was the first time since 2002 a team lost week 1 and then won their next 2 games by 28 points or more. They have the best coverage grade in the NFL based on Pro Football Focus through 3 games. A lot of those 9 sacks last week against Washington, that was because of the man coverage, which was really, really good. They can put pressure on the quarterback without blitzing much. They had the sacks and interceptions, only allowing 3 points last week. They got to be a little better in the red zone. They had to settle for a couple field goals early. But I like the fact that Josh Allen, no sacks, no turnovers against a good Washington defensive front last week. That Washington defensive line is better than the Dolphins defensive line. And he was very good and clean against that defensive front. They're just more balanced overall. 7th in EPA per dropback passing offense, 4th in EPA per rush, passing defense 2nd in EPA. Their rushing defense is also top half of the league. It's 15th. So not really a whole lot of weaknesses there. And I think because the Miami offense has been so good, Eric, we're forgetting that they still have some holes on the defense. Fangio doesn't quite have all the personnel there yet. I like Buffalo in this spot. I locked them in at 2.5. I wouldn't lay more than 3, but I do like them in this spot.
Yeah, I played the -2.5. Teams that start 3-0 ATS are 42.3% ATS week 4. Teams 3-0 ATS that are road dogged, 5% ATS. Teams that won by 38 points or more following week, 41% ATS. Teams after scoring 40 points, 46.8%. The betting trends just say to take the Bills here. If we just kind of look into it, the Chargers game, like you mentioned, just came down whoever had the ball last. Pats, 6 drives resulted in the Finns territory, only got 3 points. There is some sort of universe where the Finns are 1-2 right now, and people are questioning if Tua is the right guy.
Yeah.
They're 3-0. Coming off a historic performance. It's time to kind of pump the brakes. This is going to be the best defense and best offense they've played. Coho has graded out great in the back four, but Apple and Howard are graded very low. I think this is going to be a big Gabe Davis day. I think he's going to be able to take advantage of that. Yeah. I absolutely love the Bills here. I'll take the 2. I bet the 2.5 as well.
Yep, we're both going to be on the Bills. That's one of our plays this week. Vikings at the Panthers. Vikings were 11-0 in one-score games last year, 0-3 in one-score games this year. They have now just a 2.3 chance to make the playoffs. There has not been a team starting 0-3 to make the playoffs since the NFL expanded to 17 games. Last team to do it was the 2018 Houston Texans. They got inside the Chargers' 6-yard line 4 times and had 10 points in those trips. They threw the ball 50 times. Cousins was 32 for 50. He leads the league in passing yards. Not Tua, not Mahomes. It's Cousins. He's on pace for over 6,000 passing yards and 51 touchdowns. He's only the 5th player ever to have at least 325 passing yards and 2 touchdown passes in each of their first 3 games of a season. They ran the ball a little bit better this week. Madison had 20 carries for 93 yards, but they allowed 445 yards. 2 different receivers to catch 7 passes, more than 120 yards. They get lit up, man. They kept blitzing over and over, and it just wasn't working. Herbert completed 40 passes. They just don't have, like you've pointed out, they don't have the personnel to fit Brian Flores' scheme, but they just keep doing it even when it's not working. So the Chargers decide to go for it late in the game on their own 24 with 1 minute and 46 seconds left. They get stopped. So the Vikings have the ball. They got to score a touchdown. They're down by 4 with 1 minute 46. It's a 4th and 5 on the 15-yard line, 41 seconds to go. They pick it up, but they take 29 seconds to run another play. They said that they couldn't hear the play being called. There was confusion. It was such an unbelievable end to a Vikings-Charger game that couldn't end any other way than that. All this confusion, all of a sudden there's only 12 seconds left to go. They run a play, 1st and goal from the 6, and they throw an interception. It's like, you couldn't have scripted it in a movie for it to end worse for those 2 teams. Now, I got to say, Carolina, if Andy Dalton's playing, I'm playing Carolina here.
See, so this is my thing. Like, I have a thesis. Young was benched. You can't tell me that he has an ankle injury and he's standing up. That game was 4 hours with how many goddamn penalties it had.
Yeah.
That he's standing up for
the whole time.
4 hours in no walking boot, walking around on the sideline with an ankle injury. He got benched. Footwork sucks. He's not seeing guys. My main thing is this is my worry with the Panthers. Frank Wright in the team meeting saying, hey, you know what? We need to get Adam Thielen the ball. He had, 15 targets?
He had 11 catches for 145 yards.
It's absolutely absurd. Now, granted, Mingo got hurt, but you have Terrence Marshall, you have Miles Sanders, you have Hayden Hurst, Seattle, awful defending the tight end. And for whatever reason, they're just locking in. I just don't get it. Panthers have an absorbent amount of injuries defensively.
Offensive line, they had 8 false starts on Sunday, and 6 of them came from the experienced tackles, and they couldn't run the ball either. 14 carries. The noise in Seattle got to them. One point, they had back-to-back penalties, so they go 3rd and 4, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 14. But
yeah, I just don't know what's gonna. Both these teams are 0-3. It's tough to kind of see who's going to show up. From what I've been told, if the Vikings lose this game, Cousins is as good as gone.
He's gone. The Jets, yeah.
And
I think that
want nothing. Maybe if it gets up to 5. Like, I looked at one book before we started recording, it was at 4.5. But right now, it's at 4.5 here too. But right now, there's nothing.
Yeah, if this is on Sunday, if this is Dalton, I'm playing it at 4.5. Because I think this is a close game. I think the Vikings probably win a close game here, but Young has only had a better passer rating than Zach Wilson. So Dalton had 4 passes of 20 yards, of 20 plus yards in that game. They only had 1 in the 2 games with Young prior to that. Like, he just was not good. He did not look comfortable. Dalton's a pro, and he can at least like make some things happen. And the Vikings don't have a great defense either. So like they should be able to move the ball fine here. But you're right. Like they're depleted now. They lost linebacker Thompson. Horn is out. A couple more on the defensive side went out with injury. And they couldn't beat a banged up Seattle team. But I'm going to probably play this if it's 4-ish and it's Dalton on Sunday. I'll be locking it in on Sunday. Let's keep rolling, Eric. We head next to Pittsburgh Steelers at the Houston Texans. Man, Stroud, Dell, Will Anderson, all making massive contributions for the young Texans team. Pittsburgh's a 2.5-point favorite on the road in here, over under 42. Stroud has been fantastic. 900 passing yards in his first 3 games, no interceptions. Last week, he was playing without 4 offensive linemen. And while he has some pro wide receivers, right? There are some solid wide receivers in the room. He doesn't have a number 1 guy. There's no Jefferson or a guy like a Keenan Allen last week. There's no receiver that is just a playmaker that's, unguardable. He's the one doing the work out there. He actually has 7 dropped passes, which is second most in the league. He's only the 3rd quarterback ever to throw for 900 over their first 3 starts. Herbert and Cam Newton, and the only one that doesn't have an interception. He was fantastic against the blitz last week, 8 of 11 for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. They had a kick return touchdown, an 85-yard return by the fullback. 255 pounds, Eric. That is the heaviest player ever with a kick return of at least 50 yards.
That was a little funky play, though. That was like,
I know.
how
It was.
a little funky.
It was funny.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it was a funny play. And their special teams was good. And I was just impressed overall because I think you and I have gone back and forth on what about, is Ryan's a good coach? Is not. This week, I thought they prepared the team very well for a team that was down 8 starters, 4 offensive linemen. And whoever is working with Stroud is doing a really good job with him because he looks very well prepared and not rattled at all.
Yeah, he looks the part. Like for me in this one, I got this at 3, 2.5.
Stay away, but 3 I'm in.
Favorite 3 or more, 22, 33, and 1. That's 40% ATS. Stroud has looked absolutely lights out. Texans, they're getting healthier, which is going to be huge for them. Pickett looked good, but it's against the Raiders, so how much can you really take that for what it's worth? Pitt O-line has some issues. I think Will Anderson and crew is going to be able to get home against Pickett. Steelers have been very, very, very sloppy. You can run on them ever since Cam Hayward went out. Maybe we see Dameon Pierce bounce back. And also, this isn't like a typical game. Like normally when teams play the Steelers, like because the Steelers are so popular, it's like 60-40. Well, J.J. Watt is going in the Ring of Honor or whatever the hell it's called there.
For Houston.
Number retired, Ring of Honor, like whatever. So there's going to be the emotion there, and it's going to be a predominantly Texans type crowd. I like the Texans here plus the 3. I'm just higher on them than the Steelers. Steelers have some major issues going on.
Their defense
is Antonio Brown says Matt Canada needs to go to Canada. So
he does. And the defense is good where you expect it to be good. I think you can hit them in spots. And on offense, yeah, they looked better last week. They're still 30th overall in EPA per dropback. They're in front of the Bears and the Jets. That's it. Those are the only 2 offensive they've been better than so far. But Watt's a monster. I mean, he can wreak havoc on anyone. That's my concern if you play the Texans this week. And I might at plus 3 is that if they're without 4 offensive linemen and Watt is just unblockable, that this could be one of those games where it's like, there's been a lot of Stroud buzz this week, right? Like this could be Watt sacks him a few times, like welcome to the show, Rook. So that would be my only concern there, but not with the Steelers outscoring them offensively. This next game, can't really get too excited about what I saw from the Saints late with Jameis in that game. They were up early in the game, 17-0. Carr gets hurt. Then they gained 49 yards on 4 drives and just 2 first downs. They did have a drive that goes 8 plays, 70 yards. They missed a 46-yard field goal, which actually could have won the game for them. It was actually the largest blown lead since week 3 of 2012. offensive line was not good. 33% pass block win rate, 38% pass rush win rate. Guard Ruiz had to leave the game early. That hurt their depth overall. In a game like this, divisional game, and if we're going to get over a field goal, I think Tampa's defensive line could perform well against the Saints' offensive line here. I think Tampa has done enough offensively, and they've shown enough to me through 3 games where I think their offense might be just as good or better than the Saints has been. So at over a field goal, I would be on the Tampa side here, Erik.
Yeah, I took Tampa here. Winston 8-19-1. ATS is a fave. And when you rewatch that game for the Bucs on Monday night, in on the first half, look, Evans had some dropped a touchdown. That game was a little bit closer. Eagles, I think, got 10 points out of Hurts's turnovers, which was absolutely insane. I just think the Bucs are going to be able to stop the run. Kamara's coming back. How is that going to look? Working him in there. Saints, you can run on them. Bucs have the 9th best DVOA defense versus the pass. I think this is going to lead into some Winston turnovers. So look, I like the Bucs here. I played the 3.5. I think a sneaky person for DFS is Chris Olave. Averages
he's been money, man.
During during Winston starts. Had $147 had 9 for $147 last game. Bucs this year, the opposing team's number 1 wide receiver. Brown 9 for 131, Moore 6 for 104, Jefferson 9 for 150. I would definitely put Olave in my DFS lineups and probably bet his prop to go over his rushing yards.
This next game, Washington at Philadelphia. The Eagles are an 8-point favorite. I'm going to say little about this game because I just don't want to touch much of it. And I'm still pissed off last week, Erik. Sam Howell, you and I are playing in a fantasy matchup. I have to throw in a quarterback fill-in, and like on the waiver wire, the guy who's supposed to get the most projected, and just sort of looking at the game shape, it's like, yeah, he's a dog against the Bills. He'll have to be coming from behind, to be throwing. Sam Howell got 0.56, and I lost a fantasy matchup to Erik by less than 2 points. So if Sam Howell gets 5, I win that game. He gets 0.56. It's okay. I don't mind losing to you, buddy, if I have to lose to anyone, but he was not good. He got sacked 9 times. That's 19 sacks now in 3 games. He's thrown 4 interceptions. I mean, that right there, they've been sacked 19 times, and the Eagles defensive line could just wreak complete havoc on them. But I'm not confident enough in the Eagles offense. They haven't really been moving the ball well through the air. They haven't really hit that. And the Eagles secondary, you can attack them. So I can't get a good enough feel for this. I would never be laying it with the Eagles, but I don't feel confident enough to play the Commanders at +8. Do you?
I want to, but I just can't.
I want to also.
Look,
because they got crushed. Nobody's going to want to play them after last week, right?
Hurts as a favorite at home is 9-2-1.
Hurts is 20-1 in his last 21 starts in the regular season. 20-1.
Yeah, 12-5-1 ATS against the number at home. Is the O-line going to be able of the Commanders to block the Eagles? I don't think so. Are they going to be able to stop the rush? Like this is just a pass for me. Even though I really want to take the Commanders here.
I do too. I think I'd need 10. That would be the point where I would think there was enough value if it was double digits. But yeah, I'll stay away from there. Raiders at the Chargers. Man, we have 2 coaches in this game that were so inept last week in certain spots.
I have no problem. I have no problem with Staley going for it.
I don't either. Right there, I just have a problem with earlier in the game him not going for it in similar situations, and then last week kicking it on the 40. Like that's my there's no consistency anymore. I think he was feeling this week that they were down 0-2. I think he thought if they lost, he was gone, to where he's now going to just say, F it. I'm going to go out doing what I want, what I thought I should have. Because when he came into the league, he was going for it on every fourth down. He was super analytic. And now it's been, and then last year, it was like he overcorrected so much that he was not even going for it when he should have all the time. That makes no sense to me at all. And I, again, like the play call, maybe get creative. They couldn't run the ball at all. They had 15 carries and 30 yards as a team. So do something a little more creative.
Yeah, run like a
like
formation with a little pick play going or
anything. I don't mind the call at all. But man, it's the same stuff for them. Banged up again already. Mike Williams, torn ACL. He's out for the rest of the year. Keenan Allen looked good. That was, dude, a monster game. And like visibly, he was just bouncing all over the place. 215 yards, 18 catches. He also had a 49-yard touchdown pass. Herbert was 40 for 47. It was the first time ever a quarterback completed 85+% of their passes on 45+ attempts. And it's just the defense, man. They've been miserable. Their pass defense, they're giving up huge explosive plays every week. Week 1, Dolphins hit them. 47-yard pass, multiple explosive plays. Week 2, Titans, 47-yard pass. This week, Vikings, 53-yard pass. You can't give up a 50-yard play every week. You have to tighten that up a little bit. I don't mean the Tennessee. I mean tighten. How about the Raiders? So they're down by 8. It's they're down by 8 with 3 minutes to go in the game. And it's 4th down and 4. They send a field goal team out. They get a penalty on the field goal, so they get an automatic first down, and the drive continues. Yep. Now it's a minute later. It's 4th and 4 on the 8-yard line. 2 minutes and 25 seconds left to go in the game. They send out the field goal team again. Like, what the hell is he smoking? How about this? Since the 2-point conversion was adopted, 1994, this is the only time in history a team attempted a field goal in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter when they were down by exactly 8 points with less than 5 yards to go for a first down or a touchdown. It has never happened before because if you've got one play to get 4 yards, why wouldn't you keep trying to score a touchdown if you've got the ball? It doesn't make any sense. You don't even know if you're going to get the ball back ever. It's like, and of course, Pittsburgh picks up a first down. So by the time the Raiders get the ball back, they're down by 5 points and there's 12 seconds left. They have no timeouts and they're on their own 15. Nice clock management there, McDaniels. Unbelievable. I was like everybody was, and it's funny when that happens and we're all watching it together on social media and everyone's like, what the hell is he doing right now? And I mean, because of that, I can't touch this game with a 10-foot pole with these two coaches. I can't ever touch the Chargers laying 5.5. They're going to be way more Raider fans at this game than Charger fans. But Jimmy G has been terrible. He's in concussion protocol. He had 3 interceptions. He has 6 interceptions on the year. I don't want anything to do with this game.
I'm looking at this. Herbert, just struggles. They're 13-17-1 as a favorite, home favorite, 9-11-1. JC Jackson, what's going on with his arrest situation? There's some speeding violation that a warrant was arrested for him. Chargers still struggle stopping the run. Garoppolo's banged up. We don't know what to do with him. Look, again, I just want nothing to do with this game. I will maybe look at Keenan Allen props, though.
Yeah, man. Especially when Eckler's out, he gets just peppered, man.
Well, this is his last 10 games. Targets: 20, 10, 9, 13, 11, 6, 14, 9, 14, 14.
And the 14, 14, and 9 are this year, right? Those are the 3 this year.
No. This year is 20, 10, and 9.
With Moore, who we thought was going to be, and what they're doing too is they're down the field more because they're taking not Kellen Moore down the field more often. They're taking advantage of Herbert. Herbert threw like a 25-yard dart across his body, like one of the most incredible throws ever. It's like unbelievable the arm strength this guy has. We're both staying away from this one. But Eric, I locked in the Cardinals plus 14 in this next game. Like that's too many points for this Cardinals team. They could be 3-0. They've outscored their opponents by 34 points in the first half of games. They're 10th in EPA per play on offense. They're 9th in EPA per rush. They were up in the fourth quarter, 16-10 against Washington. They had a 28-7 lead over the Giants, and they just beat the crap out of the Cowboys. They rushed for 180 yards in the first half. That's the most rushing yards in any half by any team in the NFL this year. Their offensive line was really good. They ended up getting 222 rushing yards, 7.4 yards per carry, the most for Arizona since week 6 of 2020. Dude, Dobbs was signed 2 weeks before the season started. And shout out to him, man. That was his first ever win as a starter. I don't know if you saw the video of him on social media where he went to the merchandise store and they don't have his jersey.
Yeah.
He can't buy, and he tried to type it in and it wouldn't even do it. He said, come on, I wanted to order it. And I will be critical of people and horses and anything that I bet on, and I'll be critical because I will also praise. I laughed at the videos of Jonathan Gannon where he was talking and trying to rally guys up and this and that, and we laughed at him. Dude, this coach has done a great job with this team. Everybody thought they were going to be not even competitive in any game, and they have been solid against most metrics. They have been way, way overplaying their talent level, and he's got this team out there prepared, and they're doing a really nice job, man. So I want to give him credit. I think this is too big of a number for a team that's been playing feisty so far.
But see, this is my counter to that. Okay. Like the Cowboys are the most popular team in the league, right? So everyone's going to notice how the Cardinals just beat them. Is that going to attract more people to bet the Cardinals?
Well, my only thing is it doesn't bother me if it's not into the number, right? Like if it's built into the number, that's my issue is that because San Francisco right now is way more hyped than a Cardinals team. I think people were like impressed by what they saw. If this number was 9, I would say that. I would say, wow, this is a lot of people that are like giving Arizona way too much credit for the win over that. I thought this number last week was 12 against Dallas, and that number was too high. This number shouldn't have been higher than that. Like this number, that was way too high. Like I think everybody's still a little off on Arizona, and San Francisco's good. I mean, Purdy hasn't been as sharp this year. He's graded quarterback 20 in Pro Football Focus. It's all about the yards after the catch with them. It's not any knock on San Francisco here. To me, I've just been a little bit more impressed with Arizona overall. As soon as it got to 14, that was a buy-in point for me. Sounds like you're not really invested in this one way or the other.
I'm looking at the splits right now. 55% of the money, 55% of the bets is on Arizona, but 60% of the money is on San Francisco. So, it's a little bit, seems like there's more bets, but more money coming on San Francisco. If I'm going to do anything in this game, I'll look to bet Zach Ertz under his number just because Fred Warner is the best in the league defending the tight end. But in terms of getting involved in a side here, if the Cards wouldn't have won, I'd probably be involved. But since they won, and I don't want anything to do with this game.
Yeah, because I completely understand what you're saying. I just don't know if it's built into the number at all. Like to me, if it were down a little bit, but I completely agree with you. I'm never trying to play the teams that feel like they're coming off of like a high value point, but I think San Francisco is just such a high value team in the market. Like everybody is always really all in on the 49ers. A couple more games to hit at, Eric. We'll get through them quickly here. Cowboys and Patriots. They win the 15th straight time over the Jets do the Patriots. Patriots are at the Cowboys, excuse me. This game is a 7-point spread right now. Man, Cowboys come off that bad loss we just talked about to Arizona. I actually would like to play Dallas in a spot like off of such a bad loss, but not as a 7-point favorite and not as a team where I have to ask questions like, how good are they? They beat the Giants against a bad offensive line. They beat the Jets with Zach Wilson, and they got beat up last week in the first time they had any adversity. And now they're missing, they had 3 offensive linemen out. They just lost Diggs. And so now what ends up happening, Gilmore has to be your number 1 coverage guy, and he's not that good, Eric. You know? So
Yeah.
it's like a bad domino effect for everyone. Like I think the Cowboys are the side. I just wouldn't play it at this big of a number. And
see, I took the Patriots.
Well, yeah, I would take. That's what I mean. I wouldn't take the number. Like as soon as it hits 7, that's too much. I think the Cowboys will play better. I'm just not all that impressed with them overall. My problem is I'm not that impressed with the Patriots either. Offensively where I'm worried.
I look at, we talked about before. I look at the world. There could be a world, an alternate universe where the Patriots are 3-0. They start off the game awful against the Eagles, 2 turnovers, but still were in a position to cover, let alone even win the game. Then after that, they played the
Dolphins.
Dolphins, six trips, only 3 in the territory, only 3 points, and then they just beat the Jets in a monsoon. So I think this team could be a little better than the record indicates, but you know what? They lost 2 games they easily could have won. I looked at the production of the Cowboys defense when Diggs was on the field versus when Diggs isn't on the field. It's not as good as a defense. Everyone thinks Micah Parsons is the engine that could on this defense. It's actually kind of Diggs. So the defense goes down. Their main issue coming into the year was running the ball. They have given up the 8th most rushing yards this year, which is kind of crazy to me because this is their big weakness. They used the high draft pick on the kid from Michigan, Smith, and that just really hasn't panned out. DVOA has them graded 20th against the run. I think the Patriots are really going to look to run the ball on them.
Zeke.
The Cardinals rushed for 222 yards last week.
And Zeke got more involved. He had 16 carries for 80 yards. They're a little banged up on both sides of the line now. I think that's what's been concerning me a little bit because the offensive line and the defensive line's missing some pieces. And I don't know if I've ever just been a Mac Jones guy.
Cowboys I think could be without 3.
3. They already have 3 out, probably. Yeah. So big number for 2 teams whose offenses I don't like. And look, it's the over-unders, only 43. So right off the bat, you probably want to take the dog in a situation like that where low total, big spread. Chiefs, Jets, Sunday Night Football. We may be hearing about Taylor Swift in New York here. This one is almost a 10-point spread. The Chiefs on the road. They scored 7 straight times last week, 4 touchdowns from the running backs. They picked on the offensive lineman, Taylor. He was the guy on opening night that kept getting penalized or kept should have been getting called for penalties and wasn't. And since then, they've just been picking on this guy. 2 more times he got penalized for lining up in the backfield. This year, their defense much better. Better in particular, the passing defense is a top 5 passing defense. I'm staying away from this game one way or the other. I do think the Jets are at probably their lowest value point right now as the almost 10-point dog at home. It's just the way these teams match up. Kansas City's defense has actually been pretty solid this year. And Zach Wilson, he just lost all of his confidence. He's not like, you can just, it's not good. He's 31st in yards per attempt and 33rd in completion percentage. No depth, no accuracy. Behind him, it's Tim Boyle. And you know the guy who needs to get a little bit of the blame on this too, Eric? It's our guy Hackett. It's the offensive coordinator, Hackett, who was so miserable with the Broncos last year. Now it's Hackett and Zach Wilson together. I want to take the Jets badly. I think I'd need 10 to dive in because, man, I
kind of want to take the Jets here, but I really think, look, my thought process is this: I got to see how the day goes. If this gets to 10 and the public gets killed, we're gonna get a little inflation here.
Let me say this: this is getting to 10. This is that Taylor Swift money now.
Home dog.
This is gonna get there
on Sunday night. 62.5%. Mahomes 7 or more on the road. 33%. This is a lot of points. Jets defense is good.
They're very good.
This is a good defense. Yeah, I don't know.
You need a big spread with Wilson. That's the thing. You need the double digits there at home because, man, poor guy just looks shell shocked out there. Final game, Monday Night Football. We go Seattle at the Giants. Giants slight favorite in this one. It's basically a pick 'em. Seattle, they've bounced back the last 2 weeks pretty nicely. Offensively, they've looked pretty good, and they were running the ball a little bit better. For the Giants, they are depleted by injuries. They were down 4 starters last week. I got to say, and they were without Barkley. Still a little disappointed because I like their coaching staff so much that they haven't been competitive against a couple of the better teams. They have played 2 of the better defenses, though, so far. And now the game against Arizona, if Arizona isn't as bad as we all thought, maybe it doesn't look as bad as we thought they were down early there. Do you have a strong opinion on the Monday Night Football game one way or the other?
I'll probably end up in New York.
I think I'm on that side too.
I really don't think I have any rhyme or reason for it, but I think I think I'll end up in New York.
I think with the few extra days off,
kind of like my thing, few extra days off,
because they had a short week after Barkley got hurt, and they didn't have a whole lot of time to maybe, hey, let's use Waller, let's use Hyatt, let's find a way to use some of these guys. Now they got a few extra days. I trust their coaching staff. I think they're going to be better than they showed the first couple weeks.
Yeah, and Dable is historically good. I don't know this. I know the Seattle team won, but I just don't like them that much.
I know, me either. I don't like them.
I'm kind of trying to look at it right now in terms of like days in between games. What is this? 11 days?
Yeah, since Thursday when they played San Fran.
Teams with 11 days rest that are home are 13 and 11 ATS. So I mean, there's nothing really. I'll look straight up real quick. Go ahead, sorry.
And, Eric, as you look that up, for us, it looks like this week we've got the Bills, the Texans, the Buccaneers as 3 that we liked. The other 2 I think we probably will lock in would be the Giants here. We could lock in as our 5th one. We need one more. It would either be – I'm okay with Patriots. We can go Patriots +7 for the other one. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Cool. Yeah, so that'll be our 5 this week. Remember, folks, Eric and I will be hanging out on Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time for the winning ticket on DRF Sportsbook. Follow Eric on Twitter, Etoff21, and check out all of his great stuff, Etoff21 Sports. You can find out where podcasts come out later this week, anytime he has live streams that come out for the football games, and talking a lot of college. He had his podcast last night that came out. And then Sunday, we'll have even more information and preview all of these games on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Anything else you need to plug or mention before we get out of here, buddy?
No, let's make some money. Let's cash some tickets. And let's, try to make it another good week, my man.
Good luck, everyone out there. And we always thank Eric for all the hard work and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week to preview all of these, but we'll hopefully see a lot of you on Friday for